Hey everyone, welcome to Lifetime Talks. I'm Jamie Martin.
And I'm David Freeman.
And in this episode, we are talking about the science of sprinting and really talking about UltraFit at Lifetime. And we're excited to have our guest with us, Mechelle Freeman. She has been with us before, and she has a last name in common with you, David.
Yeah.
Let's remind everybody of your connection.
This is my wife. This is my better half for sure. So you heard from her before. So double time this time. We got you again this time around.
I think we're equal parts, babe, not better half.
Yeah.
I love
Whatever
being
she
with you
said.
too.
Whatever she said is right. Let's just go with it. All right. I
Well,
rock with it.
Well, we'll tell a little bit about you, Mechelle, and people can go back and listen to your episode, which is really more about your full story. But Mechelle Lewis Freeman graduated from the University of South Carolina, has her degree in bachelor's and master's degree in integrated marketing communications. She went on to manage advertising and marketing accounts for global brands, including Coca-Cola, IBM, and Xerox. From there, she decided to pursue her childhood dream of the Olympics, and she left corporate America to become a world-class athlete. Running track since she was 14, Mechelle went on to become a 2007 world champion in the 4x100 meter relay, a 2008 Olympian in the same event, and is currently USA's head women's relays coach, most recently coaching her teams to gold medal performances at the 2020 Olympic Games and the 2022 World Championships. On top of that, Mechelle is also the founder of the nonprofit Track Girls, where she empowers girls through track and field with workshops and grants. And she currently lives and coaches UltraFit in Frisco, Texas. Mechelle, we're glad to have you back.
Hey, yes, I'm glad to be back. Yeah, you made it through that bio. That was my fault. Okay, next time I'll send the short version. But
I think people want to know. I think they want to know.
That's fair. But as you age, the bio just tends to get longer and longer. Yeah.
I know. Well, you've got some cool stuff, and the stuff, especially your coaching with the relays with Track Girls, it's worth all talking about. So, well, let's jump in, because today we're talking about UltraFit, which is one of the signature group training programs at Lifetime. And we want to just we've done a shorter episode kind of giving the basics about UltraFit. And today we want to delve a little bit deeper into the science of this. So let's start by talking a little bit about the three components of UltraFit and then go from there.
Yes, I love UltraFit. When the CEO Baram was talking about this program, and of course I heard sprints, my ears and heart and eyes are going to peak up quickly. So UltraFit it's an amazing speed and conditioning program, a performance training really to develop three main areas, and that's going to be energy system training, really helping to develop the aerobic and anaerobic systems. You're going to have some speed and power development, of course, because when sprinting, it's a big area of learning how to apply force and absorb force when you're doing exercises and movement. And then lastly, there's going to be some functional strength development through some balance, coordination, and stability training.
Got it.
Yeah, I mean, even talking about those elements, I hear about it all the time at the house. I'm like, please stop talking to me about work. I don't want to hear about anything work related. David, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And I know you're super passionate about the sit piece, which is, sprint interval training. And a lot of people out there in the health and fitness industry have heard of HIIT, which is high interval intense training. So what exactly is the difference between sprint interval training and HIIT training?
Yeah. So, the primary difference between HIIT and sit is that with HIIT, although it reaches a high intensity effort, it's not maximal. And with sprint intensity training, you're asking for maximum intensities. And if you think about the definition of sprinting, you are not actually doing sprint training until you are over that 95% effort of activity. So, and with the sit training and UltraFit, you are going through 55 minutes of crescendoing to this sit opportunity where you have 4 maximum intensity 15-second intervals. And so, yeah, that's the difference. One thing is hard, but it's another thing to go all out.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, just to recap what you said, so HIIT training is somewhat you can sustain, it's challenging, but when you do sit style training, that's not something that is going to be easily repeated without the right amount of recovery in that space. Is that what you're saying?
Well, okay, David. Well, since you want to make your point, that's a good one. And that is the recovery, the difference between the two. And when you have something like with HIIT, you're thinking about at about an 80% intensity level, 80 between 80 and 85. You're going to have, you're going to need less time for your body to recover, to be able to match that intensity again, which is the aim, repeatability in that space when you want to transform in those high intensity areas. When it's something like sit and you're going maximum effort, your body's going to need more recovery to be able to replenish the elements that you're using in that space. And your energy system, when you're all out, you're that ATP phosphate system, that is going to be about 6 to 8 seconds of flight or fight feeling where your body is using all of that energy to accomplish that effort. And it needs a lot of more time to replenish that space than when you're using a different type of energy system when you're having less intensity efforts.
So you tapped into it, right? That's one of the three. We're kind of talking about the cardio element. You have two other elements as well. So when we think of functional strength training, let's go ahead and talk about the strength element. And then the one word that you keep saying around this house, neurological training. Can you tap into both of those and how that comes to life within UltraFit?
Well, I mean, for sure. Anything when it comes to movement, it starts at a cellular level. You think about your central nervous system and what has to change starting there for it to have a physical outcome. And so whenever you are doing training such as sprinting and balance training, you're asking your body at the, let's just say the basic unit of a motor unit, your fast twitch muscles versus your slow twitch muscles. In order for you to progress and have that adaptation in a sit experience or that in high intensity level, your body has to know what that feels like so it can have that function from a nervous system level to have the transformation. So when you're thinking about fast twitch muscles, you have to have the power output. You have to have explosive movement in that 95% intensity for your body to do those things that had an adaptation, recruit more large muscle groups, recruit more. So now your fast twitch muscles are developing. Now you're getting increased muscle mass. And now you're tapping into the parts of your system that's going to activate development of HGH. And that's going to affect how your body burns fat and metabolism. And so, yeah, the effort has to be there in order for you to get the transformation at the neurological level.
Jamie, I'm going to pass it to you, but I think I got a new acronym for ATP. I know that she kind of ended up throwing a little bit out there already, but since she said adaptation, let's go with adaptation for A. Let's go with transformation for T, adaptation, transformation, and ultimately it leads to progress. Oh,
Okay.
ATP. Y'all can have that for the day. That's my one gift to y'all for the day. Jamie, you're up. What you got?
You've always got a gift. It's my favorite. That's why I love doing this with you. Okay, so you mentioned, Mechelle, the crescendo that happens. And I want to stick with that for a few minutes because I tend to be somebody who's like, I think this is 100%. Like, how do you coach people? Because this is really hard. That fight or flight response that you mentioned, it's so easy to give in to that. And I am completely like, that is me. Like, I'd be like, okay, this feels really hard. I just want to be done. But how do you coach people to get, I mean, again, like you said, it's a central nervous thing, but you have to get mentally comfortable with this idea as well. And you've coached elite athletes. And how do you do that? Both for elite athletes and the everyday athlete that's coming in to these classes, because I see that as a huge, like, people being held back by their own mental kind of
barriers. Don't get me preaching in here now, because it's a whole lot that goes into that space when you're at a threshold point in your life. And that's what we're tapping into with UltraFit. Like I said, you're in performance training. And so in that mindset, or in that space, comes the mindset to support that. Which I'm glad you said that about the intensities, because it's so many, my brain is going a couple of places, but first on just thinking about like the anaerobic training space in sprinting. When we are training for 100 or 200 or 400, you have to do sprint intervals, get back to the line. No one's ready to go again. Yeah, but again, you have to follow the formula to get the result. And in order for you to get the result, you have to go again when you don't want to. And that's going to require a lot of things mentally to get yourself to say, I got to go when the body's saying, I don't feel like it. But you have to push there, because even when I'm in UltraFit and it's starting to increase the intensities, I'm letting them know, hey, this is our threshold. In order for you to get the benefits, you have to get through this feeling and get to the other side. The transformation is on the other side. Trust yourself. Trust what you've been working on. Listen to my instruction, execute the movements, and then your body will be prepared. So it's all going into a whole nother path about preparation and execution. But that's what the UltraFit class does. So as you lead up to that crescendo, you're prepared for that. So when you start from the beginning, and it's starting with a 3-minute interval, and then it goes to the 2-minute interval and the 1 minute, and to that crescendo to the 15 seconds, you're going from an aerobic effort. And from the very beginning, you're talking about the mechanics, so that the movement patterns are being instilled from the very first moment when you touch the treadmill or when you start the class. Because even like as an elite athlete, you're showing up, and whether it's practice or if it's time to compete, then you have to be ready for and what you're going to do. And every movement you make, every thought you put into your mind in that moment is going towards the result. And so you have to understand like the importance of every detail that you have to execute in order for you to get this result. So like I said, from the beginning, you're thinking that way. I'm telling them from the very beginning what movement patterns I want you to think about: landing on the balls of your feet, your shoulders, hinging from your shoulders, your breathing patterns. And as you go from an aerobic effort and you're increasing the intensity each level. So again, I'm talking them through what those intensities feel like. But by the time we get to that crescendo, you're prepared. You know the movements. We've been strengthening the movements on the floor. We've been coming back each time talking about what you feel like. We've been letting you know that each time you touch the tread, the intensity is going to increase. I'm expecting more from you here. And so by the time we get to that crescendo, I've given you everything for you to be prepared as a coach. And hopefully you've taken that in, because there's some athlete responsibility and accountability there too, for you to say that I'm ready for this moment.
I love that.
It was a lot.
And this is coming off of David. You and I did an episode about the importance of preparing and programming, and that's exactly what this is all built around.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's intentional. And so that's why with UltraFit, when you come away from it, you know exactly what you're putting in, so you know exactly what you're getting out.
Yeah.
Well, the one thing that stood out to me within a lot of the things that you just said is the mental capacity in this space. And I know a lot of people who come into the space of fitness and health and fitness, what they're looking for is results. So when we define UltraFit, and we talked about the 3 elements as far as the cardio, the strength, the balance, and neurological elements that all come into play. What results is one going to get from this class? And more importantly, what you said that kind of stood out to me is within that mindset of knowing when to go to what I call the dark place, right? How do you now get that individual to that place of understanding this is where you're going to break through, not break down, but break through? So can you share with us as far as how one will see results in this class, and how you will get them, how you will coach them to arriving there?
Right. It's important that, in order to get results, like I said, you got to have some real intention on what you're working towards. And in those 3 areas with energy system training, your aerobic conditioning, your oxygen is at the foundation of all your systems, your cardiovascular system, your muscular system, what we were talking about, your neurological, and it's in the foundation of all of your movement. So there's thinking about this functional movement from day to day. What do you need to be doing to build the foundation of how you operate functionally as a human being, right? So think of that as the trunk of this tree that you are building. A beautiful tree, just life. And so from there, you go through the speed and power training, and that includes that anaerobic system. That anaerobic system, now you're really getting to that space of competitive exercise, but at the same time, you're building your foundational athleticism, the buoyancy of how you move, the elasticity of how you move, the functional planes, gait, going into push, pull, squat, lunge, the speed and power of it all, the unilateral movement of sprinting, and how that translates to where unilateral function of walking every day. When we have to run behind our kids, run to go catch that plane, different things that you have to do functionally that translates to speed and power, just exercise it, explosiveness.
Yeah.
Those things don't have to be about just being an athlete, but how are we as human beings going into adult years and our senior years feeling elastic, feeling athletic, feeling functionally strong when we squat, lunge, push, pull, and those things. And then on the other side of it, you're talking about if you want to go to that high level of performance just to being a competitive everyday human being, then you may want to continue to build your muscle mass. You do want to have the and be in an optimal space on how your body burns fat, or how your body is able to metabolize the fuel that you're putting in. So you want to it's about living in this optimal space, how we're giving ourselves the best opportunity to be who we are as human beings, perform the things we want to perform. And that's what Ultra Fit is giving you, that opportunity. It's going to build you functionally. It's going to build you athletically. And then you'll see as you age, as you talk about physical literacy, the motivation, the competency, the knowledge of wanting to move from all the way through, you can't move anymore. Then we just want to give you a program that will maximize all of those things.
Okay, hold it right there. Hold it right there. All right. For the next 2 minutes, when you answer this next question, no more scientific terms. I'm breaking it down. You're about to talk to a third grader, fourth grader. They got to understand exactly right now what you have seen from a transformational standpoint, from an athlete that you have coached result-wise. What have you seen a person go from point A to point Z that you coached from a result standpoint? No scientific terms. I'm trying to limit your syllables to probably 4 whenever you have a word.
Don't do that.
Let's go. What you got for us? The people want to know. Let's go.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Aha moment. Transformation.
Okay, but transformation. The other thing is, when you were talking about mental, I'll just touch on my biggest memories of athletes that I have worked with are, of course, going to be some great accomplishments as far as results on the track, but it's definitely attached to breakthrough moments of understanding their capabilities. It's a glass ceiling on what we see about ourselves, that sometimes it's an unconscious thing and you don't realize you're hitting against it because you're not recognizing that it's there. And so if you have somebody that can see that in you and reveal those things in you, and then you're training against those thresholds and realize internally I can push through it, then yeah, I have athletes who I've worked with when I told them exactly what was going to happen. Look, your anchor leg on a 4x4, it's going to come down to this last 100 meters. She's going to catch up to you. When you come down to this last 100 meters, it's going to be between you and her. Now, how are you going to handle that? And when it exactly that happened, it's in Minnesota. I will never forget it. And she was anchor leg, came down the last 100 meters. And I was on the field watching her because now I was really here for her to respond to that. And she won by just thousandths of a second. She held the lead and she was on the ground. So we have won world championships. We have won Olympic gold medals. So I got memories there. But I tell you, I will never forget why I was at a high school with that young lady winning that 4x4 and understanding that she could do that. And so that's what that performance training will do with Ultra Fit. It's pushing yourself mentally and physically, understanding that things matter. Like, you're not just coming in here to do movements, but you should be working on strengthening your neutral spine position, because that's your posture that you should be walking in every single day, and making them understand and become aware of those things so they can actually apply it and see differences.
Mhm. And really what you're speaking to is like there's so much more than the aesthetics and the physical results that you're going to get from a program like UltraFit. I mean, there's things happening in, like you said, at the cellular level, there's things happening at the hormonal level. There's things happening in our minds that are breaking those glass ceiling barriers that we put there for ourselves. So I think that's what's really interesting about this format. And I've only done a sample class of it fully, and like disclosing that to all of you because the sprinting, the sit scares me. But it's just one of those things where like it's so much more happening than you realize. And whether you have aesthetic results or not, there's a lot happening here.
Yes, it's a lot happening here, and that's the trick of it all. But when you get yourself in there, I really when I'm working with them, I get excited in UltraFit when I give them the awareness and they apply it and see that it actually works.
Right.
Like, so it's one thing. That's why when we say UltraFit faster, fitter, like, you're going to get faster because you're going to know how to execute movements. You're going to be strengthening movements. And as you get stronger, you're going to be able to sustain movements. And when you're sustaining movements, then you're faster. So it is real results that you will see that when you actually do what's being asked of you, it works. And so that's what the biggest key is.
This isn't for everybody though, right? I just want to caveat that to start anyway. Like you can
Yeah.
progress into this, but I think it's important to talk about like getting into UltraFit and like understanding like when to kind of step into that type of training, and also how it fits into an overall workout program. So who's it for, and how does it fit into an overall workout regimen?
Yes. When you think about UltraFit, you're going to, of course, think about people with, it says that high training age. But what that really is saying is that it's different from somebody who's a beginner as far as coming in as the consistency of how you move, how you exercise, how you work out. Is really someone who's been showing some type of foundational capabilities of understanding functional movement, proper mechanics of functional movement. Somebody that has an understanding of stability, joint stability, and mobility. Someone that has a basis understanding of what that feels like, what that looks like, because we're asking your body to do some I want to say high level things, because it's certain movement that you need strength to be able to do, such as when we're asking you to get your knees to hip height so you can apply force with sprinting. The whole point of it is that you're increasing your body's ability to produce force. So you need right angles. You need strength to be able to apply. You need joint stability for your ankles and your knees to be able to absorb the force that your hips are now in the right position to put out. And so when all of that is happening, having someone who doesn't have joint stability, having someone who doesn't have mobility, your nervous system is going to see those energy leaks and not going to give you maximum output of saying you can handle this force. And so it just comes into that ability of, are you able to maximize your experience to get the results there? And so it works really well for somebody who has that foundational place as far as where they start and how far their body is developed in those areas. As far as, it is a high intensity class. So when it comes to how you incorporate this into your regimen, you want to think about high vigorous activities as getting about 2 touch points a week with some type of active recovery day in between. You like to think about it as having 48 hours of separation when you're having an intensity such as a sprint or a sit. So with that, that's why it's important that you understand intentional metabolic training. So knowing your energy system, knowing your heart rate zones, get an active metabolic assessment so you can be really intentional on your training. Then now you're knowing if you're having these zone 4 days and these zone 5 days like UltraFit asks for, then you're going to need a zone 2 day in between, or zone, you're going to need to do a zone 3 day. You know how to map things out. So you have classes like that's also signature classes, small group like Alpha, and GTX that has very metcons that are going to speak to those heart rate zones. So it's good to know what other classes can come in between and supplement those high intensities to those moderate and lower intensity days.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to know this isn't a class you're going to do every single day, because you would
Yes.
get
Oh my
hurt.
goodness.
You would, yeah, it just wouldn't be.
Sometimes, right? I've had members be, I've seen them the day before and they back the next day. I'm like, oh no. So I just got to make sure we're very clear on how the body feels when you hear my instructions of, all right, the intensities are increasing.
Right.
All right. Well, I mean, I would say this, that you're not alone in this journey. And I know that you and the crew are currently revamping certain things to make sure to bring about execution. Because right now we understand the vision from what Brahm created, but now you, as that subject matter expert, bringing the execution element to life and the consistency. I can speak for this, passionately around Alpha. The consistency is what truly elevates the brand. So when I say you're not alone and you have some superstars out there, we got you, of course. And then we got James Bynum, we got Kerry Johns, Dejan Smith, Ashley Drakowski, Eric Bertelson, Stayshawn, and Dominique Flores, all across the nation and also in Canada, that are representing this brand. And I know that they're going to appreciate a lot of the revamping pieces that you and the team have been working on. So just wanted to shout them out. And I don't know if you have anything that you want to say around consistency and brand elevation in this space when it comes to UltraFit. If so, please chip in on that.
No, we're excited because going into the new year, I'm looking forward to having some touch points with different coaches, and then just getting the education on really looking at the brand promise and making sure we deliver that at our highest capability as coaches. So, again, 3 main areas. If we're teaching about energy system training, if we're doing speed and power development, and if we're doing, balance, coordination, and ability, then we need to make sure that the education behind that is there and is being understood. So it's very important, as coaches, when we talk about LT Connect and what I was saying about active metabolic assessments, all the added values of again getting the outcomes and being intentional about what the results you want to see. Then it's important for our coaches to make sure those things are understood by the athletes and members that are taking our classes. So yeah, just making sure the education is there around what are the differences in the fueling the aerobic system versus the anaerobic system, and progressing those things. And again, on the energy system side, it's important that the athletes understand that in order for you to get these results, then 80% or above feels like this. And, going into like that RPE of, you're not really being verbal at this point. You're focused on what you want to do. You're not worried about sharing about what you ate last night, what you watched last night, but I got to get through this interval. So just making sure that they understand that if you want results as well, holding the members accountable of knowing what it feels like to really be in an anaerobic state, but also just making sure the speed and power education is there, knowing what it takes to develop force, because that's what sprinting is. And what does that look like on a functional strength side, on a balance side, how you progress them in those areas. But at the same time, you're developing the posture to help you a better sprinter as well, even though that's going to help you move better as a human being every day. So it's just being intentional on the floor and the exercise selection, helping the coaches just understand what we're building. So when we're talking about going in a specific block order, starting with the core, we want to make sure we're having them have neutral spine awareness. What does that feel like? Especially if you're on the balls of your feet, what does that position feel like that I should sustain? And then on the floor, as we move to even our hips now, adding hips a little bit more in the core area, because that's our anchor of our power when we move from functionally and when we sprint. So yeah, now I'm excited because the education will be there a little bit more on how we strengthen movements, and why, so we can have some intentionality behind there in the programming side. And then lastly, just making sure that we know we're training thresholds and coaches know what type of space we got to tap into mentally for that to happen.
There's two names. I'm sorry, and I cannot make sure we move on before I say these two names. Jason Greenwald and the superstar right in our own backyard. Shell always is talking to him. Juan Herrera over at Plano. He's I guess you could call him a secret weapon that we definitely will launch at some point in time. So shout outs to both of them as well, because they're doing great things in this space.
Yeah, I also want to shout out Haley as well, Haley Akrati, who came on and talked to us in our shorter episode about this as well. She's right here where I am in my backyard in Minnesota. So the other thing, Mechelle, you just mentioned something that I kind of want to just go on to. You mentioned fuel. And I'm wondering, like, as people are preparing to kind of come into this class, like, do you talk about fueling for these types of workouts? Because that matters. So much of what we do outside of the health club matters, and it can help us do and perform once we get there for these kind of classes or the athletic event. So can you talk a little bit about the fueling aspect before we let you go? I know we're like probably over time.
No, that's important though. Of course, every class we talk about fueling, because again, going back to the energy system training, what you fuel your bodies with, meaning your nutrition, your hydration, then that's going to support the outcomes. That's how your system's operating from. So if we're asking you to be in an anaerobic space, then you need to know what fuels those spaces, going into a carbohydrate. So coming into a workout, what should you eat today for OsherFit? You may want to grab something that has carbs, complex carbs. So now you're being intentional about how, again, you're progressing. And that's what we want them to do. That's what we want to see. So the fueling is going to be important. I'm talking about it every single class after we finish. Of course, even on the hydration side, like making sure we're reiterating the hydration points throughout class. And then they understand what that looks like when they're away from class. And then last is the recovery. Of course, we want them to get rest and get their bodies chances to fully repair, because we're asking them to move body parts that it's like, okay, your posterior chain, pull in, tuck, posture here. And, you're now using your calves in different ways, your quads, your glutes, your hips, everything's being tucked here, And those are going to feel a little different the next day or two, as your body adjusts to, again, adaptation, as you're going into that speed and power movement and all of those things. So anyways, fueling is going to be a very important and actually detrimental part of getting the outcomes you want.
Anything else you'd want to add about UltraFit or just sprinting in general that before we sign off?
Now, I'll just say what's great about UltraFit and just speed and conditioning is when you think about sprinters and trying to be faster, it's not just about, oh, I want to be able to be a faster person, but the benefits of that functionally and athletically, and just thinking about, the things that how you want to feel every day. I want to feel my best. I want to be able to do the things I want to do when it comes to movement and just the energy. And that's what UltraFit ultimately does, which is why I love it. So yeah, you're going to get sprint training, you're going to get balance, coordination, and stability training, but you're going to come out in a way that you're going to be more educated. You're going to be more aware of how you should be moving every day, feeling your best, and knowing tangible ways of pushing your thresholds in order to get the transformation that's at the other side.
Love it. All right, David, do you have a question for Mechelle?
You're talking about like a mic drop moment. That's what you're asking, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking for, because you always have one.
Mic drop moment. Where will UltraFit be by the end of 2023?
Oh, okay, that's a good one. For UltraFit by the end of 2023, I would want all of the coaches to have all the information they need on how to provide a program that gives results for our members, that's really having performance training that is just making people feel better, encouraging them to be them best selves. And it's going to be a program. I know David's asking me this because he's alpha. So, you know, we try to talk about Ultra Fit, going to take out alpha one day, but that's not, but we look at him shaking his head. Look at him shaking his head.
It's like,
Look
no,
at him shaking his No, but in
yeah.
2023, I just want to see successful markets where you can see growth in the Ultra Fit space. It's a program that's, you know, fairly new and just coming into its own. So I would like to see it in a place of consistency. You know, now I knowing this identity in a strong, confident way, and that's being understood on every touch point that we have. So yeah, that's what I see for Ultra Fit, a consistent, understood brand that's having, I would say, high growth state.
Love it. Nice.
That's so good. Well, Mechelle, thank you for coming back on. I know if people are interested, we're going to link to the beginner sprinting program that you created for Experience Life. We're going to put that up on the show notes page for this so people can see that. But then we also have lots of different content already that we've created about UltraFit so people can continue to kind of learn more. We have an UltraFit workout that our founder and CEO, Bahram Akradi, you know, demonstrates. It was in the magazine at one point. So lots of good stuff. But Mechelle, if people want to follow you and stay connected with you, how can they do that?
Oh, please follow me on Instagram. It's Mechelle, Mechelle Lewis Freeman. And then on Twitter, I took my husband's his alias, and I'm Coach Freezy.
Love it.
Yeah.
And then pay attention. How do Alpha and UltraFit, like, what are they doing? Try them both. They're all great. So yeah. So right here, I'm so lucky because I get to be with you two, who are such great representatives for these two really important and growing brands at Lifetime. And you know, I've spent more time doing Alpha. I'm gonna do UltraFit. It's got to get to my club, my home club more. But
I'm coming to Minnesota, so you better be ready.
Tell me when, and I'll be there. So
okay, you hear it here.
I heard it. You heard it, everybody.
Well, I appreciate you both, and Mechelle, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.